All right, welcome everybody to the 5th annual DULASA and UPenn STEM Librarianship Panel. We're really excited to have everybody here. My name is Ashley and I'm the current president of DULASA. DULASA stands for the Drexel University Library and Archives Student Organization. And I just want to say again, thank you all for coming. If you are a Drexel student, if you are a Penn student, or if you're a student at any of the other schools we advertise this event to, thank you for being here tonight. And thank you to all of our panelists. We're really excited to be doing this for the 5th year in a row. This is really amazing that this has kind of been passed down through the hands of various people involved with DULASA. And we really, really appreciate everybody coming out tonight. A couple of things, as I said earlier, this event's recorded and we will be posting the recording on our YouTube channel. I'll give you guys all of the information about that later on, as well as DULASA social media channels. So you guys can stay up to date about other events that we're going to be planning for the coming terms. This event typically runs a little over an hour, given time for all of our regular questions and then audience questions at the end. If you missed what I said earlier, please, if you have a question along the way, put the question in the chat. You can send it to me specifically, or you can post it for everyone. But regardless, I will be reading the questions out loud so that everybody can hear them and giving each panelist an opportunity to answer everything. So just a little brief introduction. So this event is geared towards current library science students, but also really just anybody interested in library science and wants to learn more about the field of STEM librarianship. We've got really great panelists this year. Most of them are in the Philadelphia area, not everybody. A couple of them know each other, which is really exciting. And I will give a brief shout out to Jay Bott, who is a great colleague of many of ours actually who are here right now and who's doing this for the 2nd time. So thank you again. All righty, Barb, do you want to say anything before we get started?
Yeah, thanks, Ashley. I'm Barbara Kavanaugh. I'm an associate university librarian at the Penn Libraries, and I have oversight for the science and health sciences libraries there. And this event is near and dear to my heart. As Ashley said, it's the 5th year and running now. And one goal of the event is to encourage library students to consider a career in health sciences or physical sciences librarianship. I will confess that many, many years ago, when I entered the profession, I unexpectedly fell into health sciences. I was an English major in college and never thought I would do anything in my career related to science. But after my first job in a hospital library, I never looked back. It's so rewarding to be contributing to scientific research and patient care from the perspective of a librarian and what we bring to those professions. And that's a lot of what you'll be hearing about tonight. So without further ado, let's hear from our panelists. Thanks, Ashley.
Yeah, thank you, Barb. All right, so as always, even though we did post some bios about you guys on the blog post that Penn had, and then also on the events page at DULASA, or with Drexel Libraries as well, we just wanted to give each panelist about 5 minutes or so to just give a brief introduction about yourself and what your current position is within librarianship. Yeah, just kind of like a little bit of what you do, and we'll get to the kind of how you got there later on. So if anyone wants to jump right in and go first, please do. I also will call on people if that's easier.
Okay, I can start.
Thanks, Jay.
Yeah. First of all, thank you, Ashley, and thank you, Barbara, for organizing this wonderful panel. Again, this is also my favorite group for several reasons. I'm a graduate of both Penn as well as Drexel. So my alumni connections really help me and inspire me to work, connect with students and so on. And to say what I'm doing in my present job, I want to go a little bit back and just highlight how I became an engineering librarian. Um, I have a master's in electrical engineering, master's in education, master's in instructional design, and finally information science. And my journey to librarianship actually started at Penn. I would say I was a graduate student at Penn. I was working at Lippincott Library at 2000 Garden Reserve at various part-time positions there. And when I was at Lippincott, I kept on asking questions to my supervisor. How is it that I type something and computers gives me back with search results, and I can modify my keywords and I can do this and I can do that? This is simply fascinating. So they told me that I think it looks like you will be perfect as a librarian. So I want to explore this further. So then I got connected with the dean of Drexel's College of Information Studies at the time. I'm talking about many years back. And I got an appointment with them and I started talking about my background and my interest, my curiosity. And then I got connected with Dr. Catherine McCain at that time, who was expert in SciTech and bibliometrics and so on. And I took her class, and that class actually inspired me to do a lot of research because her assignments were quite challenging, fun. You had to go in the library, find sources, and make sure that you document them. So you actually have to hunt down from hundreds of print resources. At that time, print reference was the key for success. So that's how I became a librarian. But the thing that made me really appreciative of the field is uh, 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 respect for curiosity, intelligence, partnering, leadership, teamwork, working together, finding information from a variety of disciplines, connecting different disciplines together with science, with engineering, with business, and so on. So all that led me to work in a very interdisciplinary fashion. So whether you think about open access or open education sources or data management, all those fields are interacting. So I do collection development, collection management, but mainly online electronic, basically, because all of our students sort of prefer electronic access to journal articles and so on. But it doesn't mean that everybody does electronic. We have few students who prefer print as well. And I'll ask that many times students just print out, and we have 100 pages of printout on their table. So isn't it they're just referring to print at the time? It's just a question. So another thing that I like to engage is with interaction with students and collaborations, and I become student with students. I become informal. I ask questions, they ask me questions, and that question answer process really helps me discover what the information needs are and how those needs can be met. So a lot of lifelong learning and kind of active ways to reaching out to different student associations. In engineering, we have IEEE, we have American Society of Mechanical Engineering, ASCE, all those different societies and the student chapters, and then we connect with them. And a lot of things we used to do before the COVID days. And since then, it has changed so much. And now going back to that level, it's going to require some efforts, in my opinion. I don't think Zoom is the same thing when you are actually actively engaging with students face to face. You have a pizza party, they are having fun eating food while learning and talking and interacting, engaging with experts. So some research, I build library guides on various engineering disciplines, I connect with faculty and students, visit labs, working with engineering students to make sure that they have access to engineering standards, talking to them about intellectual property, patents, inventions, and so on. So a lot of different things I do, and I really enjoy every moment of it. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Jay. That's great. Anybody else want to go next?
Sure, I'll go.
Thanks.
Before my Wi-Fi freezes up, hopefully. So I'm Hannah Rutledge. I'm a director at UPenn's Holman Biotech Commons, which is our biomedical library that was recently renovated and renamed. We opened last year, about a year and 3 months ago, as the Biotech Commons, and then we were recently renamed Holman Biotech Commons. So it's a beautiful library, beautiful space to work in every day. And as director of biotech, I report to Barbara. So my boss is here tonight. But also I see my main purpose as being the advocate for my staff and supporting them. I don't know everything. They are the professionals. They are the experts. It's my job to work with them to make sure that they have everything they need and to help clear any barriers or challenges that they may have. And then also consider the larger picture of the Biotech Commons and how we contribute to our communities. We serve the Perelman School of Medicine, the School of Nursing, which is the #1 in the country, again, recently ranked such, as well as the biomedical graduate studies. So we work with bench researchers and lab researchers. And so, and then also work closely with Penn Medicine, the healthcare entity of Penn. So, so there's a lot of medical researchers. We serve a lot of students as well, and a lot of grad students. And it's a lot of fun. And I try every day to support and communicate with my staff the best I can. I have 6 direct reports, soon to be 7 direct reports, and there are 17 of us there at the Biotech Commons. We have some really cool resources, such as the anatomage table, which is a virtual dissection table. It's out near our assistance desk or our information desk. And so anyone can walk up and start playing with it. So you're welcome to reach out to me and just say, hey, I want to come see the library and learn more about it. And we'll be sure to spend some time at the anatomage table because it is really cool. Even my 4-year-old son is pretty good at moving around the cadaver images. So we also have the Bollinger Digital Fabrication Lab, which is home to our expansive poster printing service and our 3D printing service. So we have staff who help print conference posters, research posters that are not only used in conferences, but also on like research days when their department or their schools host those. And it's really, they describe it as a white glove service, in that they help with the design. They have a huge monitor so you can look at it, identify any misalignments or typos, and they can print in various fabrics that the posters have. So some are easier to pack in a suitcase rather than carrying the tube. So, and the 3D printing service is phenomenal. No health sciences library has anything like it. And they are very much involved and impactful to the clinical, the academic, and the research efforts there in the Penn community. So that's not 5 minutes, but I was trying to keep it short and sweet, and happy to answer any questions, and thank you for having me here tonight.
Awesome, thank you. The virtual dissection table sounds really interesting, so I'll have to ask you about that later.
I have visited. I have seen that a few years ago.
Yeah, cool. Excellent.
I used it as a lunch table the other day. I had a sandwich on it. That's a joke.
That better be a joke, Stephen.
Yes. I'll go next. My name is Stephen Hall. I'm Penn's new computer science and engineering librarian. So my job is sort of twofold. One, I am a liaison librarian to Penn's School of Engineering and Applied Science. And also I act as a subject specialist for computer science. So I liaise with the school and also support them for research, for academics. Basically anything that involves computer science or code, people can come to me for. That's I'll leave it there. There's more I'll talk about in future questions, but I'll stop there.
Thanks, Stephen.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Martin, and thank you so much for extending the invitation for me to be here to talk to you all and talk to your students. I really do appreciate it. I am a full-ranked health sciences librarian, so I did go through all the ranks. We do have a kind of a tenure process here at the University of Arizona. So that's my primary appointment is here in the health sciences library. I actually have a secondary appointment in the College of Pharmacy as a clinical instructor. So our health sciences library supports 4 health sciences colleges here. So we support medicine, pharmacy, nursing, and public health. And the way our librarians provide services is through an embedded model. So this embedded model came out maybe about 15 years ago is when it really started to take shape. And so I was actually hired to be directly embedded within the College of Pharmacy. So I work among the faculty, the staff, and the students there in the college, and I have been ever since I started, basically. I've never had an office in the library. If I did, I think it was kind of a landing spot for a little bit. So my office has always been in the college where I provide a lot of the services. So I provide instructional support and research support, not only for the PharmD students, but also the master's and the PhD students. And now our school just started a BSPS program, so a Bachelor of Sciences in Pharmaceutical Sciences program, which I'm trying to also get my foot in the door with them, so to speak. So, and I do support all the research, so the scholarship for faculty, both not just in the lab sciences, like the drug discovery and development and the pharmacology and toxicology, but also in the clinical research aspect of it. So I work with a lot of faculty there. But yeah, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I've been here for 15 years, and Stephen was my former colleague before he moved all the way. You all stole him from Arizona, so he's a brilliant mind. So I'm very happy that he's there. So
it's getting cold here,
and it's like 70 today. So and I've got my long sleeve sweater on, so it's cold. But thank you, yeah, and I'll save a few for some of the other questions.
Cool. Thanks so much. And thank you guys again all for being here. I won't stop saying that for the rest of the night. This is really love hosting these kinds of events. And I think they're so educational for someone like me who's been in this program far too long, almost done, but also to people who are just starting out and just want to learn more. So our next question is, did you have a STEM background before pursuing an LIS degree? And did you concentrate on any kind of specific area of library and information science, either before or after grad school? Some of you guys got into this a little bit already, but I think sort of a burning question for a lot of people who are considering STEM librarianship really is, do you have to have a STEM background? So if you guys want to speak on that and your own personal background, yeah.
I guess I can start. As I mentioned briefly, I did have an engineering degree as my master's and also undergrad. But I don't think the STEM background is necessary, but it is good to have. Because when I was doing my thesis for master's thesis at Drexel in engineering, I had to do a lot of research myself, going through the libraries, going through the different indexes, so whether it is science and technology, science citation index or engineering index. There used to be all print volumes at this time. And so first background, first understanding of learning about how to index really helps to have that background. Of course, you can do a lot of it learning while on the job, but having some understanding earlier also helps. It really also helped me to understand that it is not engineering by itself. You know, if you are an electrical engineering, it doesn't mean in today's world you only stuck with the electrical engineering field. They are also working in collaboration with biomedical engineers and medicine and so on. They're working on some kind of entrepreneurship or technology transfer project, which requires them to have some understanding of business planning, business development, and so on. But I would think that what is needed is passion and love for the field. And with that, you can really have that curiosity, and you learn and you engage with interaction. For example, I'll give you one example that really inspired me to do a lot of different things, in a sense that, for example, we have civil engineering lab where some of our faculty members are working on cracks, cement cracks, which are sort of filled by bacteria. So, you know, those kind of things, I never thought that a bacteria can heal gaps in the concrete. And we were able to see that in a live project while a lot of students were on the lab there together and interacting. So as long as you're able to communicate, talk, engage, ask, and love for the field, I think these are key things, I feel.
Excellent, thanks.
So going in order, my undergraduate was in anthropology. I went to a small liberal arts college in Jackson, Mississippi, and kind of paved my own way with a anthropology focus on forensic anthropology. So it's the show Bones before the show existed. And it was fascinating. And I had my whole life planned out of, you know, I had an internship at University of Florida. They have a human identification lab there. And so the summer after I graduated, I spent the summer in Gainesville, which is extremely hot and humid. And I was planning to kind of get my foot in the door with that graduate program. But then working with one of the grad students in that human identification lab, I remember her telling me, like, oh, it was a great year. We have so many new grad students next year. I was like, oh, really? Like, how many? And she said, well, we had about 10,000 applicants and we accepted 2. And I was just like, oh my gosh. Well, they're not going to accept little old me from a small college in Mississippi with no like formal thing. And additional to that, I realized that working with dead people was not a passion of mine. It was very interesting and I loved it for that period of my life, but I couldn't see myself doing that for the rest of my life. And so I went back to managing bookstores. I had worked in bookstores since I was 14. So I've always loved books. My mom was a middle school librarian. So when I realized I wanted to go to library school, all I had was that background in forensics. And I was determined not to let that degree go to waste because it was expensive. And I worked really hard to learn Latin. so I went to the University of North Texas, and Dr. Anna Cleveland, she kind of pulled me into the medical librarianship track in her very subtle, persuasive ways. But even then, after I graduated, when I was nearing graduation, I was applying for anthropology librarian positions in addition to medical. And so my first job, similar to Barbara, my first job was at a hospital library. It was a pediatric hospital in Dallas, Texas. And I fell hard for that field of medical librarianship, to see the impact that a librarian can make. And that's coming with no formal STEM background. The anthropology program at my undergrad was heavy in archaeology and cultural anthropology. And so I was basically teaching myself forensic anthropology. And I think what's important to really find your groove and find your niche in at least health sciences librarianship is to be curious and to really put forth the effort and the initiative to learn. You can't rely on others to teach you everything. You have to really take the initiative and learn. And eventually, a couple of jobs later, when I landed at a academic health sciences library at Emory University in Atlanta, I just remember like checking out some of the textbooks or some of the books that the medical students were reading. So I could at least learn some lingo and understand what they're going through and what they're talking about. And it's the same thing when I started working with kind of surgical residents and things, like learning what different lab values meant or what they mean. So I think to Jay's point, that lifelong learning, that curiosity, that love for the field is necessary, and it's just a lot of fun. I mean, it's a field where you're helping people make a huge impact, and yet you don't have to be on call 24/7. You don't have to worry about rushing to save someone's life. I mean, I know a lot of it's electronic, but you're still working with books and information, and it's just a lot of fun.
I totally agree. It's really fun.
So I actually do have a degree in chemistry with a minor in physics and math. And I honestly didn't think that would be an advantage in librarianship until my mom told me, did you know you could go into librarianship and specialize in that area? And I said, really? Because I didn't give it much thought for a while. So, because I was actually working towards getting a job as a researcher in drug development. So that was what I was pursuing. But instead I got into doing some public health research, and I found that also really fascinating. But for me, it was like public health research is more kind of like epidemiology, and I wasn't really big on the whole epidemiology and the statistics thing. So I thought, well, maybe I should pursue, that librarianship that my mom had mentioned to me. So that's when I went back to library school and I got my degree in library science. But I found that having that science background really gave me an advantage to what I do in health sciences. And like Hannah, like you mentioned, there's so many facets of health sciences to know and understand. It was really actually, a lot of the things I had already done as an undergraduate and a lot of the research I did with diabetes really tied into a lot of what I'm teaching now, or what I was getting into in that realm in pharmacy and a lot of the research there. So I thought it was very helpful. I don't think you necessarily have to have a like a hard physical science degree background. I know plenty of health sciences librarians who pursue this and they're very good at it. And they've got English backgrounds and history backgrounds and law degree backgrounds, so something that is not STEM related, but they actually are very good at it. And it could be just the years of experience of working with people in health sciences area that have given them that advantage. So I learned a lot. My mentor actually had a degree, I think was in English and writing. And she was one of the most brilliant health sciences librarians that I know. And I learned a lot from her. So, but she also, was a librarian for large pharmaceutical companies. So I can see where she really gained a lot of experience. And before that, she was a hospital librarian. Yeah, so.
Excellent.
I'll go next. So I did not have a STEM background before going into library school. And to make matters worse, I never actually thought I was going to want to be a librarian. So ask me how that worked out for me. So when I was going to library school, I was wanting to go there to go into the museum field. My bachelor's was in art history, and that was always kind of the track that I wanted to be on. Library science has a lot of parallels, of course, to museums and archives. So it was definitely a relevant field, but traditional librarianship, I never thought was really going to be the route that I took. And so, as Jennifer mentioned, she and I used to work together for a number of years, and I was the director of the History of Pharmacy Museum at the University of Arizona. So I spent 8 years working in this museum of drug products, chemical products, lab equipment, really fascinating antique pieces. And so while I was doing that, while I was going to school, or while I was doing that, I went back to school to get a second bachelor's degree. I already had my MLS, but I went back for a bachelor's in computer science, just kind of for fun, because I was interested in it. And so while I was working, I was going to school. And so when I was just getting ready to complete that second bachelor's degree, as luck would have it, there was a position that opened up at Penn for a computer science and engineering librarian, which is kind of how this all came to be. As far as needing a degree in a STEM field in order to be a good STEM librarian, I would echo that. I don't think it's absolutely necessary, but I think that it will certainly be helpful, because if you're serving a community that is STEM focused, it'll help to be able to speak their language, to be able to relate to people who are in that field, whether it's in chemistry or or medicine or nursing or what have you. Just having an understanding of that field will really be a benefit. And I say that as someone who is now in computer science. It's really helpful for me when I'm liaising with computer science students to understand the principles of coding and computational logic and how that all works. It helps me to answer their reference questions better, helps me to direct them to resources they're looking for more easily. Just all around, I feel like I can relate to them a little bit better because of it.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody. All righty. So that was a little bit of both question 2 and question 3, I believe, but that is okay. We're moving right along and we're making pretty good time. So question number 4, what do you guys find about your job that is challenging? Do you feel like there are unique challenges to STEM librarianship? And then also, in addition to that, what do you like best about your job? What is your sort of favorite aspect of your job, or aspects? Can be anything, or any number of things.
Okay, I'll start with the second part of the question. What I like the most, and that is the interdisciplinary aspect of research. As an engineering librarian, I'm working with of course, the engineers, but they are also working on a project with different disciplines. All right. So, and that brings so much innovative projects that we have never heard about or never thought about that this could even work. Um, for example, we have biomedical engineering researchers working with neural engineering, brain sciences, and looking at how students learn, for example, using the magnetic resonance, some devices they use, that connectedness. So that interdisciplinary aspects is what makes my job very, very interesting, because I'm also learning different subjects together. And computer science is another area which also fits very well in that collaboration. Second thing I also enjoy is learning about different grants like National Science Foundations and NIH coming up with so many different new things that really need a lot of creativity and working together with different researchers globally. So that is where the international partnership and collaboration comes into picture. So you have 5 or 6 researchers or maybe working together on a project, and those scientists and researchers could be anywhere in the whole world. And seeing that, it really fascinates me. And give an example, some time back, I had an opportunity to attend a PhD dissertation. Uh, uh, that was before the COVID days. So we were in the lab, in the research auditorium. The presenter, the graduate students was presenting, but his 2 advisors were in 2 different countries at that time. And, looking at that, even before the COVID days, I felt that there's a tremendous potential. And exactly this came in the next few years that happened, and our classes became online and we have started on Zoom. All those things happened. So that really, I like those kind of engaging partnerships. And we have, if you look into freshman engineering class, we have close to 800,000 students sometimes that they come. And it's quite a big of challenge to making sure that they are able to understand all different databases that we provide access to. And most of them come with a belief, and that is the most challenging part. Okay, Google finds everything. Why I need to go and access library databases? Why I need to use it? And that question comes and again and again and again. And you teach a class, library instruction session, but then sometimes they don't need that information at that point, so that they forget it. And they go back to Google. And many times the students come to my office and I ask, and I always ask questions. I don't give a spoon-feeding response. I have making sure that the students elicit on their own and come to a right source that they could find it useful. So instead of 2 minutes, it may take 15 or 20 minutes to come to the right point. But that is what is going to save hours and hours of research later on. And that's what the lifelong learning is all about. And one experience I will never forget, the couple of students came to my office and they said, we have been asked to do this design project and we want to make sure this is innovative. And my professor is asking me that it should come up with, you should be able to do a patent and invention and all that kind of stuff. And they had already prepared. The project was due the next day, and we did some patent searching together, and they have not used that patent system properly. And so we were able to find something similar to what they were working on. And they started crying in my office. What's going to happen now? This already exists, and my professor is going to give me a C and D in the project. I told them, you are just a freshman and nobody's expecting for you to do something totally new You are just supposed to give ideas and suggest why this is, according to you, is something new. Of course, you're going to cite patterns, but you are going to add some additional things to make it more unique. And this is part of the learning process. And that is why reference searchings and citation searchings and database searching is so important. And there is a life beyond Google. I start with that phrase. And this kind of challenge, I also tell them that I ask them, okay, we have this access to this database. Do you think how much does it cost? And nobody has any idea how much would it cost, whether it is Engineering Village or ABI Inform or any of Access Medicine or other health sciences databases, which our engineers also use a lot, especially the biomedical engineers in Clinical Key and so on. And so I take it as a challenge to make them aware of the economics of information, and information is not free, and that the life is it goes beyond Google. So these are kind of things I like to interact and engage with students, and I believe that more you have good conversation, informal learning environments, it creates more opportunities for students in engaged and active learning, which is going to benefit them later on.
Excellent. Really well said. Thanks, Jay.
So I'll follow those footsteps. What I like most about my job, it's easy. It's the people. It's my library colleagues. It's the folks that we serve. And the leadership of the schools that we serve as well. With my library colleagues, and Frank Campbell is here, I'll call him out. He's our medical education librarian, but at least those at the Biotech Commons, their expertise is just astounding. And the ideas that they have for improving their skills or the knowledge that they have about our databases and all of our resources is incredible. They do a great job with research assistance and consultations and the systematic reviews that are never ending, it seems. In addition to that, I would say other library colleagues in the Penn Library system. I've learned a lot. We're fortunate to have a culture of collaboration across all the libraries. And so it's so easy to reach out to someone and say, hey, we talked with this person. And I think it wanted to give you a heads up that your resources or your librarians may be contacted, or, we're completely stumped on this one. Especially the Lippincott library that serves Wharton. There's a healthcare administration program there. And so we're seeing more overlap between our libraries. And also just the fun stuff like the virtual reality and the augmented reality that we're beginning to explore. We have working with colleagues in the educational technologies and the research data and digital scholarship with the upcoming NIH change to requirements. So all of that collaboration, it's all such wonderful opportunities to learn from each other and to have more brains on a project. And it's a lot of fun. I would say the greatest challenge that I see is communication. It's something that I've focused on for many years, and I'm still failing at it. And it's the darndest thing, but it's not only personal communication or internal communication. It's also communication to library administration about the impact that our library and our library services and librarians have, as well as the communication to our user communities and their leadership about not only how they're using our library, but how our library is impacting their student success, their faculty research, things like that. And so it's data is big, and storytelling using that data is something that there's always more to learn. And communication, you can always do it better. And so I think that's the hardest part. So
yeah.
did I cover all those questions? I'm looking at my printed sheet here.
Can I add something? Thank you, Hannah, for bringing this collaborative work culture aspect. And I am finding the same thing here, even at Drexel Libraries, and Ashley, for example, and even our other information experts in health sciences and nursing and social sciences and medicine and all of those. We have to work together because this expertise is a shared expertise. And depending upon what the students are looking for, we have to tap the knowledge and expertise of those appropriate experts so that we are able to provide the right information and steer them to the right direction. So collaboration, working together is so critically important.
Agreed.
So I'll jump in here. I think one of the things that I really enjoy is working with individuals, working with the people. I think that for me, making and developing relationships with the faculty has been really a rewarding experience for me while I've been here. But I also have made so many connections with students. Our students here in the PharmD program have to do a senior research project. And almost every year I have had at least one or two groups that I oversee as a faculty advisor. So I always find those rewarding experiences because I work with them throughout their, I don't know, two years. Usually it takes them about anywhere from a year to 2 years to complete the project in their final year when they're on clinical rotations. So I do enjoy working with the students on doing that. And, you know, it's really, again, making those connections, working with people, working with the students. And I always find that part very rewarding is when the little light bulb comes on and they're like, oh, you know, yeah, I had no idea. This is great. You've been so super helpful. And I like the fact that they are learning things, just like Jay said, you know, you're getting them to understand and learn and find things on their own, and they become accustomed to it and not just Google it, right? So we want to stay away from that. And so that has been one of the things that I feel like I still have a job, because new students come in every year and you have to, you know, show them and so then that goes back to the challenge. So the challenge is actually keeping up and staying ahead of the game, not only in the health sciences librarianship, you know, landscape, understanding what kind of new tools and techniques and new things are out there. I've been doing systematic reviews since 2008, so I can say I'm an old pro at it, but there are things that are constantly changing within the methodology and within best practices and different guidelines, things of that nature that I need to keep up with. So that's definitely a challenge. One challenge I will say that I do feel like that's kind of been persistent throughout my librarianship is really demonstrating the importance of library liaisonship to your administration. You know, we don't do the shiny and new, at least I don't. I'm not the expert in data management. I'm not the expert in coding. I'm not the expert in all of the up and coming, you know, text data mining, things of that nature that are really kind of the next level cutting edge of librarianship and searching for information. I do the day-to-day, you know, I do the reference questions, I do the instruction, I do the liaisonship, I provide that research and support. And a lot of times it's very hard to demonstrate that kind of value to your administration. Sometimes it can be totally overlooked. So that's one thing that I feel that has definitely been a challenge in librarianship, because people don't really value, I feel like sometimes, just the day-to-day of working with individuals and being more or less on the ground running. working with students, working with faculty. Again, answering reference questions that may not take 10 minutes, but it may take a couple of days because you have to check with the collections development person or the person that's working behind the website for whatever reason this database isn't working, something like that. So you're the go-to person on the first and foremost of working with these individuals. So that's definitely been a challenge too. Thanks.
So something that I find to be a bit of a challenge, in particular working with students in engineering, is just the way that that engineers typically think is in terms of problem solving, right? Like they want to figure out a solution. They want to figure out the answer, and so in many cases, students are not too keen on asking for help or asking for aid that might be really useful from a librarian. So in one sense, I kind of have to really put myself out there and not wait for them to come to me, but go and be a resource for them. And really that extends beyond just engineering. I think in the age of Google, there's oftentimes students they want an answer. They come to the library because they want a quick answer. But in some cases, we need to think: are they, do they know even what they're really looking for? Are they asking the right questions? And if not, how can we as librarians help them to kind of figure out what are they really looking for? What rather than just a quick and easy answer to get in and get out, how can we actually dig down deeper and really, really get them something that's going to be valuable? One thing that I found rewarding on the flip side is, at least in my role working with engineers, is given how much engineering overlaps with other disciplines, there's a whole lot of room for collaboration. And since Penn has a very robust staff of expertise in the libraries, I found that there's a lot of potential for collaboration. Every semester, we host, an engineering entrepreneurship event between the business library and myself and my supervisor. Additionally, engineering touches things like biomedical science. It touches things like design, user experience. And so all these different ideas, these different disciplines kind of overlap. And so there really is a lot of room for collaboration between students in different disciplines and also the librarians in different disciplines as well. And Penn's staff really supports that.
Excellent.
Very true. I totally agree, Stephen.
If I may add one more thing, I was thinking in my response to what I love about my job, I focused on my library colleagues and things, but I think also what's really unique about health sciences librarianship, and I mean this, I guess it certainly rolls over into STEM also, is the amazing research that the user communities are doing. I'm not working one-on-one. I'm not on the front line in my current position, but my previous position at Emory, I was working with clinical faculty and medical residents. And I was always blown away by the research they did and the impact of that research had. And then the relationships that you develop with those faculty, with those grad students, with those medical students. I worked a lot with the medical residents who they've graduated medical school, they're training to be practitioners. And my team and I would joke, we would compare lists of who would be a great doctor to see in a few years and who we would absolutely avoid, because we got to know them so well and we were with them in those more casual kind of learning environments and classroom environments. And so it's really rewarding to be a small piece of their journeys and that patient care and clinical care environment. And so I think that, in my opinion, that sets health sciences apart as a truly unique field of librarianship.
And I would also like to add something to what Stephen said earlier about how difficult sometimes students are looking for information. They are probably are not sure what they are looking for. And many times students are asking very specific questions, especially looking at engineering design and how something works for, and sometimes we may not even have heard about something, the terms that they are using. And that becomes quite a challenge at that time. So then what we try to do is getting them to articulate some broader conceptual terms that helps us to do more research and then sort of direct them. And that is why certain databases like Engineering Village are so useful, because they have controlled vocabulary that we could use depending upon a particular term that they are articulating. So learning about keywords, learning about control vocabulary, and making the knowledge of those vocabularies is important if some of you are going to think about STEM as a career, STEM librarianship. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. I just want to throw out briefly to audience members that I have a note to remind myself to remind everybody else that, again, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat at any time. We'll get to them after the next 2 questions that we have. We are at 8 o'clock as well, so I'll try to we just have 2 scripted questions left, and then we'll get to everything else. But if you think of anything, or if anything that anyone says sort of sparks something in your mind, please feel free to put it in the chat. So next I was going to ask everybody, was there a specific project you did during library school that you felt like was really relevant to your career, or maybe your path into STEM librarianship? And even if there wasn't necessarily something in library school or during your education, was there a specific project that you did maybe at work, whether you led it or something you worked on that you just feel like was really, really relevant to your experience as a STEM librarian?
Okay, I can start. I mentioned my first course in Resources in Science and Technology at Drexel that Dr. Catherine McCain taught. And she made the course so fascinating, interesting, and she required all of us to work on a research guide of using something innovative topic. And those days, Human Genome Project was just evolving. I thought that this can be an interesting topic for me to work on. This is very new. I learned more about genetics and human genomes and all those areas, but I wanted to add ethical issues to it, ethics of human genome, right? How to find data, how to find information that I could include in my research guide. And I sort of explored, and at those days, NIH and CDCs, and they were creating some database of human genome also, but there was no graphical interface those days, only text-based. So you sent a query using text-based message to the server. I forgot even the names of the servers and the technology was used those days, but after some time, you will get a notification again in a text that these are the data files that you can use. Now, these required a lot of efforts. Now, getting those files, these are text-based, and then put them on your computer and then start interpreting and get relevant information that I could use in my resource guide. So it was taking time. I talked to Dr. McCain, and she said, no, you are working on a very fascinating project. So I will give you 20 more additional days to work on it. I really like that, because this gives me a freedom to use my time efficiently, get additional information, query, curiosity, questioning, all I was learning in the process. And these are the skills I took them with me, build on this, and learn a lot of different things. I think that was a huge impact that played in my STEM exploration.
So thanks.
So from my library school experience, one thing that stood out when I read this question was, well, there were two things, both kind of smaller, but don't ask me what courses they were in, but they were in two of the core courses we had to take. And one was building your own database. And I remember using different art, actually pieces of art, pictures, and not, big pictures, but just from a book, but identifying the tags and all the metadata for them. And so it was fun in the sense that I love jigsaw puzzles, and it was just like creating the pieces of a puzzle in my head. But it also, I've realized throughout my career that it has instilled in me a great appreciation for the back end of databases, as well as like the digital archives now and everything like that. It's really, all the metadata is just fascinating to me. And though I don't deal with that in my daily practice, it's something that I always greatly appreciate and respect in colleagues that do it day in, day out. And the second project in library school was indexing. I took an abstracting and indexing class from Dr. Anna Cleveland, who literally wrote the book on it. She has a great textbook on it. And it was so much fun. And I remember during, later on in my library school, I actually, I was a TA, and it was a different faculty member, but she needed to update the index of a textbook that she had written. I was like, oh, I know how to do that. And my free account to whatever software we used was still active from that class. And so it was a great experience. And even today, when I'm reading a book or I'm considering purchasing a book, I'm like, let me see what kind of index it has. Like, is that a good index? Or, and some don't have indexes. I'm just appalled. But that has stuck with me. Again, it's that organization of information, both of those projects. And it's something that I've just kind of kept my thumb on throughout my career. And if I may give a third example that was much more recent, working, so University of Pennsylvania has a partnership with University of Botswana. And as Barbara can add to it or let me know if I misstate anything, but our now Biotech Commons Library has a very close partnership with the University of Botswana libraries, and our librarians are in close contact. We learn from each other. We provide them training. They provide us training, and the School of Medicine at Penn has faculty and medical residents who go down to Botswana. And then a reciprocal part of that partnership is that medical trainees at Botswana will come up to Penn. That's been on hold because of COVID, but they've been doing a lot virtually. And so I'm working with PSOM to kind of structure a way for the libraries to have a better piece of that or a more regular involvement in it. But in one of my conversations, probably about last year, a year and a half ago, with one of the librarians there in Botswana, we had a Zoom call to talk about kind of what training we could provide each other's teams. And that was the purpose of the call. But what she actually talked about our entire meeting was how they needed more access to full text. They needed more access to the published literature. And it was just not there in Africa. And University of Botswana is one of the universities in Africa that are better off. They have more resources than most in that country and in that area. And so she had these fantastic questions, these very difficult questions, and made the great point that our clinical folks, they don't know the most updated literature, the best guidelines. They can't provide the medical care to our people because they don't have access to that information. And so that hour and a half meeting really re-sparked my interest in open access and global librarianship. And so that's something I'm continuing to explore because, as we all know, that is a big topic across science, across libraries in general and sciences especially. So those have been kind of three impactful things that came to mind with this question.
Stephen, did you want to go or do you want me to go? Okay.
Go ahead, please.
So we're on question number 6, right? Question 5. So specific project I did during library school. So in a nutshell, I created a library in library school, pretty much. So I actually got to library school and I answered an ad from a local biomedical pharmaceutical company looking for a library intern. And I thought, oh, well, this is great. I'm actually going to use my chemistry degree and go, work with individuals because it was specifically in research and development. So it was R&D. I'd be reporting to the chief medical officer. So I went in, I threw my CV in or my resume in, got called in for an interview, and he's like, you know what? I don't need to talk to you that much. You have your degree in chemistry. We need you to start right away. I don't need to see anybody else. So basically what I did was I developed that library from the ground up. They only had access to a few resources, not very many. And they needed access to everything from biomedical journals to engineering standards to basically core chemistry resources, because like I said, I was working with R&D. So I did a lot of the collection development. I did a whole analysis of the entire company, and I developed that entire library and put it all on their intranet. So it was a lot. Talk about large facets of librarianship, right? Because I pretty much did everything, including working with the individual engineering group, as well as the medical group, and of course the core chemistry research group. So that actually was my project that I did. And I was an intern there for a couple of years before they hired me on as their librarian after I graduated. Yeah. Cool.
So for me, the big spark I had that drove me towards STEM librarianship did not happen in library school, because again, going to get my LIS degree was never to become a librarian. It was to be in the museum world. My path obviously changed, but sort of where my spark came from was just when I independently became interested in computer science. I don't even really know where the interest came from. It was just, I have a lot of nerdy interests like this, and this just was something that happened organically, and I became interested in it. And when I started learning about how computers work, I had this like head explode moment where I realized that there was this whole other world of information science that I knew nothing about. Because what you learn in library school is, you learn information organization, retrieval, management, a lot of like theoretical framework for information management. But then to do this whole other side of automation and databases, like back-end databases and programming and logic, I just had this realization that there's so much that in this rabbit hole that I don't know anything about. And so that was sort of what drove this spark in my mind. And the deeper that I got into it, the more I realized how much I didn't know about library science and computer science both. So it was just this really interesting discovery that happened, again, completely organically. And from there, I have just it's like the more I learn, the more I realize that I still don't know, and this rabbit hole is just infinitely deep. And I'm still having the same realization every day.
I agree, totally agree. Learning every moment, something new.
Yeah, I mean, and I feel like that, that's the way it is with a lot of fields. The more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. Yeah. And that's it happens. And that if that happens to you, it's probably going to continue happening. And that's a good thing, because it means that you really are learning.
And because you're curious, you're into, you want to do something new, learn something new.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah. The most foolish thing I could do was think computer science, it can't be that hard. Yeah. Forget it.
And that is what causing a lot of interest in machine learning among librarians as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really cool to know how those things all connect and interact. I'll just say briefly, when I started this program, I've obviously learned a lot just through library science, but just having it be under the College of Computing and Informatics, it's incredible, all of the things that you kind of get to witness and be a part of and learn about in related fields and all of that. And it's just really, really cool. I love it. So our last question here, and I think this is very much an audience favorite, and it has been in the past. Do you guys have any advice for current LIS students or professionals who are interested in STEM librarianship, or really just career advice in general?
I think this is my favorite question also, because of several things. This is an opportunity for me to share my own thoughts, and that could probably be useful for many students. One thing I learned, one thing I strongly suggest is to think about developing some presentation skills, teaching skills. Participate in as many webinars, active partnership, not just listening, but also to be able to share your thoughts, whether as a member of a student panel, as a presenter somewhere, through organizations like American Library Association or Spatial Library Association, or any of the archival organizations, for example. They have student chapters. Spatial Library Association has student chapters. Student membership, they're cheaper also. And you're able to participate as a student member to do a presentation as a conference, or even during these days, there are a lot of webinars are hosted by different associations. This year, I'm also a president of the Special Library Association's Science and Technology Community. So that we are also organizing a lot of events like that, in which we open to students. Hopefully, we are making them open to student members as well. I am also a member of American Society of Engineering Education, Engineering Libraries Division, and that has played a tremendous role in my learning from other expert librarians from all over the US. I have been a member for them for more than 20 years now. So try to develop presentation skills, network, connect. Don't shy, ask questions when you are attending a webinar. If you are hesitant to speak up and ask a question, just write a question in the chat and build confidence, I would say. And I think this is very, very important. And many times different organizations have mentoring as part of their support to the new librarians, new career librarians. So become member of mentoring committees, where you get paired with an expert mentor, for example. And that is also very, very important. Learning from each other, engaging, asking questions. These are a few tips I could share.
Absolutely.
I agree with all of those. And I will kind of emphasize, get involved in professional organizations, especially when you're still a student, because then you get the student discount,
Right.
which is very helpful. But also you can take advantage of, admitting that you need mentorship. Like, this is my first conference. This is, how do I start getting involved? And even at this point in my career, I ask those questions. But I think my mentor, Anna Cleveland, always told me, I joined MLA when I was still at Medical Library Association, when I was still a student. And I remember her walking me around and introducing me to all of these like landmark names in medical librarianship. And I was just in awe that they're real people, eating chicken and rice. But it's easier to network than you may expect or anticipate. And I think one thing that Dr. Anna always told me was, you get out what you put in. So the more you are involved, the more you, take advantage of the continuing education opportunities, get on committees, ask questions, connect with people, attend the conferences if you're able. It will really be rewarding. Some of my best friends I've met through professional organizations, and we still stay in touch, and we know each other's families and dogs and cats and kids, and it's really, really rewarding. I'm naturally an introvert, so I never thought I would enjoy networking. I never thought I would enjoy conferences, but it's really fun. And so I think, I was trying to keep this piece brief, because it's such a loaded question, and I think it's hard to trim it down. Yeah. But I think kind of three of my staples, and Jay touched on this, is stay curious, find something wherever it may lead you. Stephen, went from museums to computer science. Jennifer built an entire library. And so it's stay curious throughout your career, ask questions. Librarians, we naturally or seemingly naturally want to help people. And a lot of us love talking about our accomplishments and our paths and our journeys. And so just reach out and ask questions. And I mean, call it, a midlife crisis or whatever, but I always emphasize the need to just have fun with it. Life is short, just enjoy it, have fun, find something you love. It's a great career. And I think the health sciences has been particularly rewarding for me. So I guess that's all I have to say. Just stay curious, ask questions, and have fun.
And one thing also I have to add is in American Society of Engineering Education's Engineering Libraries Division, we have Conference Buddies program. So what that means is the new members just graduated, they become a member of that organization. They are paired with an experienced librarian, and the whole conference they can connect with each other. Even this connection starts before the conference. It's not just at the time of the conference. And they also have a paper review committee. So those who wants to engage in paper research writing, they can get support in how to write good papers. And same thing in Special Library Association also. We have a good network of mentorship among other participants. And that's why SLA Connect, for example, where a lot of questions and discussions and learning happens by sharing ideas and thoughts.
Thanks. So I just want to echo both Hannah and Jay's importance on mentorship. I mean, it's really, that's one thing that I would totally emphasize, is to actually find a mentor and to be willing, to put yourself out there and talk to people and understand, you know, that was one thing. Believe it or not, that was my first library assignment in library school. Very first one, introduction to librarianship, first assignment, first week. All right, go interview a librarian. That was it.
Yes.
We had to do the same thing. Yep.
So, I mean, it forced you to do it, right? So you actually have to go out there and talk to, and they, not just any librarian, right? They wanted you to talk to somebody that in the direction of what you're thinking of going, right? Because I went to school with a lot of people that wanted to do public librarianship. They wanted to do elementary school librarianship. They wanted to do, it was mostly public. I think a lot of my colleagues were interested in public. So I was interested in special. I mean, I was very specialized, right? So I went and I interviewed the chemistry librarian because I wanted to know, well, what do you do every day? To this day, I still have no idea what he does because I didn't go in that direction. Do you know what I mean? So mentorship is very important. I always found, you know, they really help you navigate through these different challenges as a student. You know, they give you some ideas and examples about some practical advice on which direction you need to go. And not just mentorship, like somebody that's a senior level librarian that's been doing this for a long time, but even I find mentorship in my peers, because I believe in peer mentorship too. So if you've got colleagues out there and other graduate students that are out there that are either going in your direction or within the similar, you know, library, you know, niche, so to speak, then those are people too that I always find is helpful to just bounce off ideas, you know, back. And I think that's really important to have is peer mentorship, because they also know that you're going through the same struggles that you're going through, right? Or you have some kind of similar quality, like you're both. For me, you know, I'm an underrepresented minority, so it's really hard to find other librarians who have very similar background to mine. In fact, I think I only know of one in the state of Arizona. So other than my mom, believe it or not, my mom's a librarian. So, but yeah, no, I've got peer mentors across the country and also in Canada that I've made really good connections with. I was part of SLA for a really long time. I'm currently a member of the AACP, which is the American Association of Colleges of Pharmacy, which we have a little library section within that group. And I have been, since 2008. So it's been a while. And so I've found mentors, and it's great because again, I think it's really important to find a good mentor. The other piece of advice that I would give, and I give this to all of my graduate students, any graduate students that work for me, I'm so glad you're here, I tell them, because it's important that you gain experience, you know, as in doing information, resources, library assignments. Even here in health sciences, I said, this is really important that you gain that practical experience, because I have met so many graduate students that tell me, you know, they reach out and they're like, I can't find a job. And these aren't the people that have worked for me, but other people that, like if I've done a guest lecture in library school, that can't find a job because they never had any practical experience or internships that they did in library school. Even if it's a semester project, even if it's a project with me for 9 months or something, or even if it's over the summer. So a lot of the graduate students that have worked for me have gone on and been successful in finding a library job as soon as they graduated from library school. But those students that didn't have, and I've heard this also anecdotally from some of my students, is that, yeah, so-and-so can't find a job. They've been putting themselves out there all this time. And I was like, well, did they have any, you know, internships or things that they've done while they were in library school? And they didn't. So I've even had a graduate student tell me, they're like, I can't find a job. It's awful. It's like, I went to library school and I just got a degree in waitressing because that's all I can find, you know, and that's not good. So that's why I've always emphasized, hey, you got to find an internship project, even if it's unpaid, at least get some experience on the books. So that's my other piece of practical advice.
And I would also add one more thing, and that once, if you become a STEM librarian, you try to get familiar with departmental websites, whether it is physics, chemistry, or engineering, or whatever, because those departmental websites will also list the research areas that current faculty members are interested in, the ongoing projects, emerging new research initiatives, and this is going to help you build the vocabulary you need when you're helping your researchers, your faculty, and students to find information.
Yeah, that was, Jennifer, you handed me an amazing segue there, because what the way I'm going to answer this question is actually sharing a anecdote that I'll keep very briefly about like one of the pivotal moments, one of the pivotal conversations I've had in my entire life. And it was just before I began my LIS degree. So I had a friend who had just completed her degree. So she was 2 years ahead of me. She just finished up. And as I was getting ready to take my first round of classes, I had lunch with her and I said, what's your sage advice? I said, what is the way I asked it was, what is the thing that you wish you had known when you were starting? Because whatever that piece of advice is, I want to know so that I can be one step ahead. So what's the thing that you wish you had been told when you were getting started? And she said, the most important thing you can do is get experience. And this is so important that I'm actually going to put it in the chat right now. Get experience. So it is so important. And admittedly, when she was saying that to me, it was related to the museum field, but it's exactly the same in archives, libraries. It doesn't matter what discipline you're going into. That is absolutely critical. And I that afternoon, literally after she and I had lunch, I went online and started typing in like museums near me and calling around and saying like, hi, I'm, this kid, I want to volunteer for you. And everybody who I called said, sorry, we don't want you. And I was like, well, that is weird. I'm offering to do free labor, but that's okay. So then finally there was this random museum that I found called the History of Pharmacy Museum that gave me a chance, and it turned into my first professional job. I spent 8 years there, and I built a world-class museum from the ground up. And it's all because I got experience, because I asked this question. So as you all are in the same position that I was in when I was asking this question, I want to impart that to you. That is absolutely my number one piece of advice. Get experience however you can, and as much of it as you can get.
And that museum is amazing. Stephen did a beautiful job. It
was
is
fun.
Totally amazing. I am just floored by how much work he did in developing it. If you ever have a chance, go see the photos online, because that's all Stephen. Mm-hmm. Everything. Every exhibit there is all him. It was amazing.
Thank you, Jennifer. It was all because I asked the question. If my friend had not told me this, I would not have done that Google search, would not have found the museum, would not have had this job. So seriously, that's my number one piece of advice.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you all so much. And thank you specifically for that example, because I think it's so reassuring and just sort of like confirmational to see, okay, this conversation led to that, led to this, and here we are now, and that kind of thing. It's really
actually one thing I want to also add, adding to what Stephen said, and Jennifer started this with getting experience. Getting experiences also help you to develop fruitful connections, which is also very important, because connections will help you build further relationships and help you in the interview process and so on.
Excellent. Yeah, absolutely.
Get experience.
So I don't want to keep you guys for much longer, but we do have an audience question. Thanks, Edith, for submitting this. So Edith says, the presenters have emphasized lifelong learning. I was wondering how this translates into participation in the profession, especially publishing and conference presentations. I really like this question because one of the other events that we put on for DULASA that we're hoping to have more of in the spring is a coffee chat where we sit down with a specific librarian and sort of ask them a lot of similar questions about their job and their experience. But one of the things we do ask them is, have you ever done a conference presentation or a research or developed or published research, anything like that, that particularly sticks out to you that you want to talk about. So again, her question's in the chat, but if anyone wants to speak on that, feel free to jump in.
I guess getting experience, start writing, get help from the experienced writers, seek assistance from reviewers, writing centers, read more and more research papers and see how the papers are formatted, depending upon where you want to present and where you want to publish. Again, it's the experience of writing that helps.
The first paper that I published was in partnership with a faculty of mine during library school. And he and his daughter actually had done this extensive research around information needs of psychiatric patients. And so I am so grateful for that experience because it was kind of a soft entry into the writing process. I was not involved in any of the research or the methodology. It was strictly the writing and the publishing process. And so I feel very fortunate that he invited me in on that project to get kind of that inside look at how it's all done, how he and his daughter both kind of organized all of their data and analyzed it and put it together in a journal article. And but I know one question that I know a lot of people ask, and I ask it myself sometimes, and I'm sure y'all do too, is what do I write about? Where do I start? To echo especially what Jay and Stephen have said, and Jennifer too, obviously, is, you know, get experience. So the job that you have, that you will get, or the internship or whatever, write about it. That's what I've told some of my colleagues. They're like, oh, I want to do this presentation because have to be able, some institutions require you to present to go to a conference. And they were like, I really want to go to this conference. What do I present about? Like, well, what do you do day in, day out? And so it's looking at, you know, once you're in a position, looking at that position, saying, what can I write about this? And that starts with reading the literature, finding what you're interested in, seeing what other people are talking about, and how your experiences can add, how your perspective can add to that conversation in the literature. And thanks, Stephen. So, and I think, you know, in regards to the professional organization involvement, that's how you meet people with similar interests, and you can partner with them to write something and publish something, or do a presentation together, do a poster together. So that lightens the load. It's not only on you, but you have that teamwork, you have that collaboration, and you're figuring this out together. So I think that's a good place to start.
Yes, and many times the organizations will have their own listserv. So if you become a member, then you have that listserv opportunities where you can find connections to collaborate.
One of the most, I think, pretty insightful pieces of advice I got was from a librarian, another science librarian that I'd known for a while that had been doing this. And I had just started academia from corporate. Well, I was in corporate, I don't have to publish, right? I don't have to do any of that. But when I got into academia, I was like, what? What do you mean I have to publish? So one of the sound advice that I got from a senior librarian, I should actually say legacy librarian, not senior librarian, because I don't like being referred to as a senior librarian. So legacy librarian, she goes, well, didn't you write some papers in graduate school that you had to do? Your research projects, your, things of that nature that you were interested in, whatever, your project, your internship, publish that. Take that one step further and publish it. Take what you did in graduate school, all of those papers, and publish it. Go and start looking and do a deeper dive into the literature and see how you can create a manuscript from it. And that was one of the best sound advices, because that's basically how I got my foot in the door. So that's something to also keep in mind. You put a lot of work into it as a graduate student, might as well utilize that in your profession.
And open to constructive criticism. Get a lot of feedback from other reviewers or your colleagues that whom you trust, because that's going to be very helpful as well.
In addition to just generically saying get experience, I'd say get a diversity of experience, if at all possible. When before I had any professional job at all, I had worked in 2 different art galleries. I had worked in a video game archive, and I had volunteered at the pharmacy museum. So I had 4 different types of experience. So like as much of it as you can get in as many different disciplines as you can get. And also just, again, stay curious. Just like when you finish your LIS degree, like that's great, but don't stop learning. Like keep learning new things. Like, go, if you want to go get more degrees, like that's great, do it. And even if you don't want to go to school for it, like just try learning new things always. It just helps you be more well-rounded, and it'll help you be a better librarian just in general.
Thanks, you guys. Yeah, that's why I always like to finish up with, questions like that, especially like advice, but also things about stuff that people have presented on or worked on in projects and things like that, because I feel like it really just a lot of the good advice and stuff comes out. So I'm going to put some stuff in the chat real quick. This is for everybody. The first one is a link to our YouTube channel where you can find this event posted hopefully by the end of tonight, as long as the video has been recorded in its entirety, and I think it has, fingers crossed. Send it to my LinkedIn. I always like to if anybody wants to connect on LinkedIn, please find me. And then also, if you want to join the DULASA LinkedIn group, you can find it on my page as well, because I'm one of the admins. And then the third is our DULASA Gmail. So if you have any comments, questions, anything at all, please hit us up through there. And I just want to say thank you guys. Thank you everybody for coming. Thank you panelists for being here. Thank you guys for devoting your time on, an evening during the holiday season to be here and offer students like myself and everybody else advice. I cannot thank you guys enough. This really is so meaningful to us to just be able to kind of come in an informal space, and also have distance students who can't be at in-person stuff on campus to come and talk to people who are actually in the field and doing a whole diversity of things with librarianship, and get advice from everybody. So thank you guys. And
I just thank you so much, Ashley. Really appreciate it. And Barbara, good to see you, Jennifer and Stephen. That's so nice to hear from you. And interestingly, I have so many connections at University of Arizona. I know DJ Martin there, Paula Johnson. Now I know you both.
Yep.
The connections. So that's fantastic.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, you guys. And I'm going to pause the recording now, but if anybody wants to kind of stay on and debrief a little bit, feel free to do so. I'll be here. So as soon as all right, stop the recording.